We do. Not because we're inherently militaristic, but because that is the reality of our situation. We're living through kind of a Lincoln moment, not so much of a Reagan moment. The Reagan era was a Cold War against a foreign opponent. But, and this is a line I use in the movie Trump Card, we are in a domestic Cold War against a domestic opponent, a cold civil war, you might say. And that means that we're not in a situation where it's easy to be friends with the other side because of what they want to do to us. And let's sort of spell that out a little bit. What is it that the other side wants? Socialism, when you think about it, is typically, you think of it in terms of economic confiscation. It's all about appropriating wealth. But the real goal of the socialists, I don't think, is that. It is to enforce conformity across the whole society. In other words, it is to make us live in their world. Think like them, submit to them, do things their way. We have a scene in Trump Card, it's drawn from Orwell's 1984, where the protagonist, Winston, is being interrogated by Big Brother, the deep state, and the interrogators are trying to get him to admit that 2 + 2 is 5. And Winston goes, no way. He goes, you can imprison me, you can lock me up, you can separate me from my family, but I am not going to admit, I'm not going to say, I insist upon the freedom to insist that 2 + 2 is 4. And so what do? They lock him up. They turn out the light, sensory deprivation, no food, no water. He's scared of rats, so they put rats on him. And eventually the poor guy breaks down. And he goes, okay, I admit it. 2 + 2 is 5. Can I go now? And the answer is no, Winston, you can't. Why? Because in your mind, you still think it's 4. You're only saying it's 5 because you know that's what we want to hear. So in other words, we, the state, demand not merely outward conformity, we demand inner submission. So it seems to me that what the left is after is to send our kids to schools where they will be subject to their indoctrination, and to get us as parents to subsidize universities where they get to turn the kids against the values of their parents. And they want us to live in a larger culture in which all the institutions that stand between the individual and the state, civic institutions, churches, are bullied or beaten into submission. That is the point of digital censorship. That is the point of social intimidation. That is the point of Antifa and BLM. If you think about it, they're all sort of doing the same thing. They're enforcing conformity. So how are these forces, in the long term, in the fullest sense of it, how do we fight this? How do we resist it? The simple truth of it is, it seems to me, that long term we have really only one option, which is, as long as this is their agenda, our goal must be to exit their culture completely. Now, this seems like such a crazy idea that for a moment you have to sort of think about it. I really appreciate the very tepid applause for the simple reason that we have to think about what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that a lot of our rhetoric, even now, even at this conference, is totally obsolete. We'll say things like, let's stand up and do a pledge to the American flag. Let's sing the national anthem. Well, if you really think about it, do we actually have a national anthem anymore? Is it really a national anthem when a whole bunch of people on the other side don't like it, don't want to sing it? We can't exactly make them. We suddenly realize with some dismay that the American flag is our flag, but it's really not their flag. They don't want it. So what this means is that a lot of the rhetoric of One America faces the grim reality that what we consider to be America, in fact, the very American exceptionalism that I kind of came to America to enjoy and experience, that is the political target of the left. It's not just that they're trying to destroy America, they're just trying to destroy American exceptionalism. If we lived in their America, a lot of the things that we think are strange, rigged elections, well, elections are rigged all over the world. For most people around the world, for my family in India, for example, they go, rigged elections, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. Political corruption, that's kind of the way it is. If you speak out against the government, a bunch of goons shows up at your house and beats you to a pulp. That's kind of the way it is. In other words, for most of the world, that's normalcy. But in America, it's not the way it's been. But it is the way the left is trying to make it. And so, what I'm saying is if we refuse to live in their America, and we don't secede, we can secede inside of America. We secede from their institutions, we get out. And I say this because what it means, long term, is we have to create our own schools. And we have to create our own universities. We have to deliver high-quality education at a much lower cost than is done now. We would make the whole existing higher education system obsolete. We need our own media. Last November, when my family met with Trump, kind of weirdly now, he goes, Dinesh, what do you think I should do after the presidency? And took me by surprise a little bit, but he meant after the presidency, and I said, well, Mr. Trump, I think you should start a network. Not a cable channel, not talk radio on TV, a lifestyle network, more like CBS. You have the money, you have the influence, most important, you already have the audience. So you would have half the country. Let everybody else fight over the other half. It's an economic opportunity. Do it. Do it. I think at that point, it's sort of, he was digesting it. He's like, all right, were you saying you want me to get out of real estate? And I didn't say it, but I was kind of saying, you know, yeah, absolutely. Now, we need to make our own movies. We need to have our own comedians. What I'm saying is we create our own culture, we live in it, and thanks to the Second Amendment, we defend it. Now, none of this is to suggest that because we live in a politicized moment, that somehow the great idealistic mission of education, education in the true sense, in the true Socratic sense, this is not something that you should give up on. This is not something that you should forget about. I think back to Socrates on the streets of Athens, and it's such a sort of iconic picture. You've got this rather absurd, toga-clad, bald guy who seems to have no job. And on the street, he just goes around asking people questions. He seems to have nothing to do other than to explore things like, what is justice? You know, what is truth? And you think to yourself, wow, Athens must have been in a moment of kind of glorious, affluent, idleness that enables this guy to kind of pass his time on the street every day. It's kind of like an intelligent homeless guy. But then you realize that this was not in fact the case. At the very time Socrates is doing this, Athens is in the middle of a terrible fratricidal war against Sparta that would last 25 years and destroy Athens, which would never rise again and live only as an ideal for future generations to emulate. So this kind of Socratic discourse is taking place under conditions that are of the most extreme and dire sort. And yet, Socrates knows that some things are eternal. Some things live on. Some things can never be killed off, no matter how crazy the political environment. For me, a lot of the falling in love with America was falling in love with education in the true sense, and the university as the true sense. It's a real pity that our universities have become what they are. It's such an embarrassment and such a crime that your elders have sort of performed upon you, not to expose you in a way to what true learning is all about. But the real beauty is that this true learning is available in books. It's still there, and it's actually there for the taking. And in today's environment of technology, it's accessible to you. So I guess what I'm saying is to not lose sight of the permanent things, even as we fight in the here and now, not just for this election, which we should, but in the bigger sense. How do we remake this Republican Party? You know, years ago, my mom said to me, she goes, "Dinesh, I don't understand American politics. Explain it to me in like one sentence." I'm like, "Okay, Mom, I'll do my best. We have two parties in America. We've got a stupid party, and we've got an evil party. I'm a proud member of the stupid party." I guess if I were telling her today, I would say there are some people in this country who are stupid and evil. Those people are called never-Trumpers. This is a difficult period the country is going through, but I am confident that because truth is on our side, and also courage. When I was younger, I admired people like Solzhenitsyn, Hayek, William F. Buckley, George Will, and I still do. But they don't represent today my highest form of excellence, because the highest form of excellence is not wisdom, it's courage. Courage is the most important virtue because it's actually the basis for all the other virtues. You need courage to be prudent. You need courage to be wise and to speak wisely. Today I ask myself not just whose book would I rather read, but who would I like to be in if I had to be in a foxhole? Would I want to be in a foxhole with George Will? No. But if we can summon up wisdom and courage, then allied with deep spiritual faith, we become invincible. We become the future, and we will carry it and save the country and bring us one step closer to that dream that Reagan evoked in 1984 when he spoke very beautifully about morning in America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
People from all over the world, like you, like my mother, like our ancestors, come from all over the world to be here, to be free. Not for the cancel culture, not to put it down, but to live in a nation that'll give them the freedom. There is nothing greater than that.
Following Dinesh is not easy, but it's not. He's great. He's great. Mike Lindell, the great Mike Lindell, is coming on after this. And I'm going to do a free advertisement for Mike because I love him so much. I use him on my podcast. I have my pillow all over my house. Made in America, right? I want to talk to you a little bit about what Dinesh was saying, though. I had come here planning on saying one thing, and like always, it changes. I was up really early this morning. Obviously, I didn't sleep much last night, as you can tell, thinking about what I would say to all of you. Because you really are the future of our country. Turning Point is going to change everything. We are an army of good people that are willing to fight for this country. And when Dinesh talked about being in a foxhole, and then I talked to my husband this morning, and he said to me, my husband was in the military. He's a retired special operator who was wounded in Afghanistan in 2011. Yeah, thank you to all the military out there, to all of our brave men and women who put their life on the line to protect the very freedoms that we all enjoy today. And I was talking to my husband this morning, and he said to me, you know something that I learned, babe, when I was out there in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I'm an old curmudgeon-y soldier now. He said, I remember a lot of people talking about the greatest generation being World War II. My father passed away when I was very young. Much older father was actually a Marine who fought in World War II in the Pacific. Yeah. He was 16 and a half years old, my father, and he lied about his age because he didn't want to be on the farm anymore. He was from Alabama. He wanted to go fight in the war. Yeah, Birmingham. Coleman, are you Alabama? Woo! All right. And went off to war at 16 and a half. That's young, right? You're all young. When I was in Afghanistan, I worked as a journalist. I covered the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. I spent a lot of my career covering the battlefield and the young soldiers. And I'm going to get back to what my husband said to me. And he said, you know, everybody says that the greatest generation was World War II. They're all great. When I was on the battlefield, young men and women your age were in Afghanistan fighting an enemy that we didn't even have a country, really. We were in Afghanistan fighting them. We're still doing that today. And a lot of them gave their lives. I remember being on the battlefield with my friend Mary, and we were flying with the parajumpers. And it was great. We were flying over Kandahar. I'm in a Black Hawk. It's amazing. I thought nobody can ever understand the experience that I have seeing this country, being with our soldiers, talking to the Afghan people. I can never bring that home. And I thought, what an incredible experience. And then we got a call. And the call was, we've got men under fire. You guys need to get out there. You need to rescue them. You need to pull them out right now. And everything got serious. I mean, it was intense. It was terrifying. And the reality was that by the time we got there, a young 18-year-old soldier would never be going home again. He was only 18, and an IED had taken out his Humvee. And when the soldiers got off the helo to get him, he was in pieces. And they brought his body bag into that helicopter, and I sat there with his body, and the reality hit me that we are all fighting. They were willing to go overseas and fight to save our nation and to save our freedom and our essential liberties and the protection of this Constitution. And the last thing that 18-year-old child, to me now, but man in my eyes, saw was a foreign land, far away from home, and his family would never see him again. That sacrifice is huge. It is not to be taken lightly. Who would I want to be in a foxhole with? You guys. I would want to be in a foxhole with you. Every single day I get up. Life is normal, but not normal like what you're all probably used to. My husband was blinded in 2011 in Afghanistan, so it's a little different for me. You know, here's a guy that is like 6 foot, tall. Everybody relied on him for everything. Marty, what should we do about this? How do we wrap our gear? How do we do this? How do we do that? And all of a sudden, he came back home in 2011. He couldn't see anything. Couldn't see a thing. Couldn't see his kids' faces anymore. He couldn't see me anymore. He couldn't see where the door was. He'd run into walls. He had to learn to live again. You ask yourself, why did he do that? Why would people be willing to go that far, to take those steps? I said, would you do it again? Would you go back? Would you go back? Would you do it again? And he said, absolutely, I would. 100%. I would do anything for my country. Anything for my country. What he doesn't understand right now is what happened during these last years. That's what he doesn't understand. That's what his, friends of his don't understand, the people that are serving. Like, how are we giving away our freedoms? How is it that people disrespect the flag? That they don't even care about the flag that actually laid on the coffins of our friends, right? Our young men and women who gave everything. Not just during the Revolutionary War, not just going to Arlington and seeing all the, that's important, but just recently, just the last 19 years of the never-ending war of Afghanistan and Iraq, all of those lives that have been affected, how did that not change? I think for me, being here today and talking to you was something that I felt was so important that I wanted to deliver that message. I wanted you to understand, as young people, that you are on the front lines of a battle that is not ending. It's continuing. You're on the front lines of something new. We're at a crossroads, guys. We're at a crossroads that is unexplainable, something in our nation that I think vehemently can go one way or another, depending on how we choose to move forward. And it's going to be up to us, to each of us, to do that. For Turning Point, I think there is no place better to invest our money and our time and our efforts than to give to the young people so that we can grow, so that we can go to battle in Washington, not just on the front lines of Afghanistan, but there in Washington, D.C., where they are trying right now on the left, and I don't want to say liberal, but I want to say on the left, to take away your rights, to take away everything that you believed our nation was and could be. Those issues, and I was thinking about what Dinesh was saying, was the reason why I covered the Russia hoax. It was the reason why I spent 4 years of my career after coming back from Afghanistan to actually fight in Washington against what I believed was the weaponization of our FBI and the weaponization of the Department of Justice, the State Department, and our intelligence services, right? James Comey, boo, yeah. John Brennan, who I knew well and interviewed many times, Andy McCabe. These were people that actually took our Constitution, James Clapper, and they trampled on it. They trampled our Constitution, they trampled our ability to have justice in this country. We exposed it over and over again. And then I ask you, right now, going back These are all the things that our men and women have fought for, and then William Barr and the Justice Department have done nothing about it. Right? Where are they? Where are we? Have we even asked them to hold them accountable? You know, Dinesh said something that's very important. He said, don't acquiesce. Don't acquiesce. Continue to fight. Continue to push forward. Don't be afraid to speak up. For a lot of us, we're scared. We don't want to go out. We don't want our neighbors to call us out, "Oh, you Trump supporter, you're wearing a MAGA hat. Why are you doing this? You know, don't you know who he is?" It's not about Trump. Just like Dinesh was saying, this is about something far greater. It's about our country. It's about retaining our nation, and we can't do it without the young people, which is why you are the most important generation right now for us, which is the reason why donors have come here to give to Turning Point, and they should give a lot. Because if it's not you, the left has their own organizations. Turning Point, look how far you've come since you were established. I mean, look at how big you have grown. This is just the beginning of something so remarkable, only if you're willing to go on the front line and not acquiesce. Only if you are willing to fight every single day, like those soldiers were willing to fight overseas. This is a different battlefield, but it is a battlefield nonetheless. It's not the same, but it can be just as brutal in some ways, and it could be brutal for all of you. But it's a lot worse if you don't do it, if you don't get out there and fight. I wanted to open up because I really want to hear what you all have to say. I really want to be able to talk to you a little bit about the work that we're doing. And for a lot of you, you may be out there, you may be like me. I feel like I can't ask a question. Do you guys feel like with COVID, with what's happened in our country, that every time you try to ask a question, they just try to ignore you or call you a conspiracy theorist? Like, well, hey, you know what? I was just talking to Dinesh about that backstage. Like, what would you do? And let me ask you in the front row here. What do you feel like every time you try to ask a question about what's happening over the last year? They tell you to sit down and shut up. I can hear you. So she said people, whenever anybody asks her a question, they basically just, no, I want you to stand up. I don't want you to sit down and shut up. I want you to stand up. This is about you. What do they tell you? And I'm tired of it too. Which is, go ahead, say it again. Okay. Can you guys get that mic working?
Okay, is it working now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
They tell me that because of my age, because of my experience, that I know nothing, and that my opinions don't matter, and that I get all my information from one source, or I don't think it through, I don't know how to critically think, just assume how old I am, and I'm tired of it, and I'm ready to fight back.
That's it. Exactly. You're not too young. You are the future. And you know what? The reason I brought up the story of my dad being 16 and a half, the reason I brought up the 18-year-old soldier that died in Afghanistan is because you're not babies. You are a part of this change. You are a part of this country. You are a part of the fabric. You should not be ignored. You should be listened to. Your ideas matter. You matter. You matter. You are important. You are everything about our future. That is why you see so many adults, people who have built corporations, people who are donors, coming here and giving to Turning Point because they believe in you. You know what? Maybe there's people out there that don't. Who cares what they think? Right? I don't care. Look, I don't care. you're never gonna be perfect. You're never gonna be able to do everything perfectly. Who cares? All you have to do is try. All you have to do is try. Just to make a little bit of difference in the world. You would be amazed at how much of a difference you can make. And you probably made a huge difference right now just saying that. I want to hear from someone else. Does anybody have any concerns regarding COVID? And I'm going to tell you why I'm talking about this, because I was a print journalist for decades, and I felt like that my job was to ask questions, always ask questions. And I feel like I'm not allowed to ask any questions. Yeah, please.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
My name's Cassidy Eiler. I live in San Diego, California.
Woo!
I work for, I don't want to call my company out. I love my company, okay? But I work for Trader Joe's. And
oh, my son does too.
it is
Good
the
for
best
you.
company, and they've taken very good care of us. But something I struggle with is just in having these beliefs and wearing the masks and having to enforce these rules on our customers. In California, I have to direct them where to tell them to wear a mask, tell them you can't walk over here, you can't walk this direction. And Tucker Carlson really rang with me last night because he said you need to do something that is with your values. And I'm violating my values every day. So what would your advice be for that?
That's a tough question because I agree with you. I know how you feel. It's like, right? Do you guys feel that way? I do. I feel like every time I'm in a grocery store, I'm looking for lines on the floor and I'm like, okay, am I supposed to go down this aisle now? And I feel like someone's gonna come on me and direct me where I should go, who I should talk to, how I'm wearing my mask. I'll tell you a story. It's based on fear. There is a fear that has taken over our culture that is absolutely unbelievable. Something that is so incredible. I thought I would never see that here. That's something you read about in books, right? You hear about it, virtue signaling, people telling us we can't wear if we don't wear our mask, we're like threatening our society, threatening our neighbors. And then we have a vaccine. We have a vaccine for it. But one of the things that I live by, and I try to do, and I hope this helps you, is, I do what's best for me and my family. I follow the rules. I know you have to work at Trader Joe's. You can ask questions, but I want you to ask the questions once the vaccine comes into play. Like, how long are they going to continue to do this? How long are we going to be fighting this? How long are they going to try to do lockdowns? What's going on in California? I mean, is it really necessary to shut down an entire state? Is it really necessary to shut down people's businesses when 50% of New York restaurants are at the threat of closing down permanently? In California, it's the same thing. And when is it going to be that people can't afford the groceries anymore at Trader Joe's? Right? Because they can't feed their families, because they don't have a job. What about the farmers? What about the farmers? What about, yeah, you're welcome. And the food that goes to the restaurants. What about that? Those are the things that we have to think about, and those are the freedoms that are encroaching on us. And we have to ask ourselves, look, I don't want someone to get COVID. I don't want people to be sick, right? I don't want that issue. You don't want that. You don't want to see your family sick. My brother actually has COVID right now, and his wife and his daughter, and they're making it through just fine. We don't want that. But what we want to do is be allowed to make choices, to be responsible Americans, not be treated like babies, not have the government tell us what to do, right? It is not the government's job to come into my house and tell me what to do. I think I can take care of my family, and I think I can take care of my neighbors, and we can take care of each other. Right, stop being quiet. I love you. You're so awesome. It is. It's time to stop being quiet. 74 million Americans, plus, they voted for President Trump, right? But they voted for more than President Trump. They voted for change. They are sick of the establishment. They are sick of being told what to do. They are sick of people butting into their lives. They are sick and tired of it. And they are standing up to it. And they are doing it with vigor. But guess what? Just like you said, they forget that there's 74 million of us. You guys, we don't need to be afraid. We're there. We're here. The next time somebody tries to insult you when you're outside in the middle of a park and there's no one around and they try to tell you to put on your mask, you can tell them where they can go. Right? You don't need to be afraid. You need to be responsible. I'm not saying walk up to people and just cough all over them if you're feeling sick. I'm not saying, go into a nursing home and, not wear your mask. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just be responsible. I think our founding fathers knew that, and they understood that. And that's why they established a constitution that gave all of us individual liberties and freedoms, and ones that are worth fighting for, ones that are worth dying for. And I hope you are all on the front lines, and I will always be there for you. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Woo! Hi, Carol. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mike Lindell.
Wow. Hello, everyone. How about last night where the mayor here stopped a lot of you from getting in? Well, I'll tell you though, I had the honor and privilege. I went outside and met a lot of you out there for about an hour, and one of you said to me, they said, Mike, thanks for coming out and taking pictures and stuff, and and having and doing this. I said I would absolutely. I love doing it. I said the only one that used to want my pictures was when I'd go to jail. But what I seen out there was a couple years ago when I met Charlie Kirk, and he had me come out and tell me what Turning Point USA was all about, and he told me, I go, wow, if this is true, would be amazing. And last night was one of the first time I got to actually meet what manifested from this, and some of the greatest future leaders in our company, or in our country. It's huge. You guys were absolutely awesome, but I want to bring you back to what got me up here and how I got involved with everything I'm involved in now. I go back to where the 1970s, when I was growing up. My parents divorced when I was 7. So I was put into a new school, and I felt like I didn't fit in, and I would either show off, like, hey, watch me jump out this bus window, or I wouldn't talk to people, I had this like fear of rejection, and I used like a class clown to show off and to try and fit in. And those wounds and those the things that happened then manifested into, I got into cocaine in the 1980s, and I was a very functioning addict for decades. And I'll fast forward, but I was always an entrepreneur. I did all these things that the American dream is. I had some businesses. My sister flooded a apartment building with a waterbed, and she was on the 3rd floor, so I became a carpet cleaner, and different things that I would do, and different businesses. I had a bar for 13 years. It was probably not a good place for someone that was addicted to drugs and alcohol. But about the year 2004, I had sold, things that happened to me in my life. I would say, I'd look back now and I go, wow, those had to happen to be where I'm at now. But at the time, it was devastating. And I end up having to sell the bars, but I had a dream of a pillow one day, these dreams I get from God, and I write my pillow all over the house. One of my daughters came upstairs. She goes, "What are you doing, Dad?" And I said, "I'm going to invent this thing. It's going to be called My Pillow. It's going to change the world." And she goes, "That's really random." And she went back downstairs. But I had these two parallel tracks of addiction, and then I ended up losing a 20-year marriage. I had people taking the company from me. I was turned down everywhere. And when I was turned down, someone said, "Well, Mike, why don't you do a kiosk?" And I said, "How do you spell that?" And I ended up doing this kiosk, and I couldn't talk to people. You know, it was people would come up, so I only worked it like one day. But this one guy that came up, he said, "Can I have your phone number?" I said, "Or can I have your business card?" I said, "I'm all out." And I reached in, I wrote down a piece of paper, and I gave my number. Well, we had to borrow money. We had 4 little kids, had to borrow money that year for Christmas presents. And I ended up, the guy called me, that one guy I gave that phone number to, he called me that January, and he says, "Are you the guy who invented this pillow? And in Minnesota here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, this changed my life." He said, "I run the Minneapolis Home and Garden Center. Would you like a spot in there?" So I said, "Sure." Well, I went in there and I put a desk up, or I put a table out so that I could talk to people, and it would be, you know, if I stepped out, I couldn't talk, but if I could talk here, because I had an agenda, you know, where they'd come up and I'd tell them about the pillow. But the next day, all these people came back that had bought one and told me it had changed their life, and it wasn't about the money. It made me feel good inside that I was doing something to help people. And that made me feel so good that I had, you know, and so I want to get hold on to that piece. But then things started collapsing. I got into crack cocaine about 5 years before that. And so I had 2 different, you know, I would keep them separate. One of the things that God got me through of all the years of drugs was my integrity. I would always keep my word, which was very rare for a crack cocaine addict. Well, anyway, in 2008, because I'm going to fast forward to get through the story part, but in 2008, I was downtown Minneapolis, incidentally, right where all the stuff's burnt away now, for the horrible decisions that came out of Minnesota with our governor and mayor. But I was down there, and I was staying down there. I'd been down there for about 14 days, and I came out of the room, and all 3 of my drug dealers, these biggest drug dealers in the cities, were there, and they're going, "We're cutting you off. You've been up for days." And I said, "What is this, an intervention?" They go, "Call it whatever you want, Mike." And 2 of them left, and the other one sat there and was and he finally fell asleep. And by that time, you know, I'm finding crack on the floor, and I snuck out into the streets of Minneapolis. And I get down there, and I couldn't buy crack anywhere. They had got the word out. And I came back upstairs an hour later at 2:30 in the morning, and he's waiting up for me. He said, "How'd that work out for you?" And I said, he goes, "Man," he said, "you've been telling us for years that this pillow is just a platform for God, and you're going to come back and help us all someday get out of this addiction world we're living in." And so I was their hope. I would always tell them that, you know, I'd say, you know, "I'm going to have this platform. It's going to be huge. God's given me this platform of My Pillow, which is going to help people pull them out of addiction." So, you know, and they believed me, right? And well, it wasn't until a year later, it was January 16, 2009. And that day, everyone says, "Was that your bottom, Mike?" And I said, well, that day I knew my calling was going to be gone. I had took this path. And you all know your callings, which is amazing. I look back now, I wish I would have learned early on. But I was very incorrigible. Well, that day I knew if I waited one more day, the calling would be gone. And I said a little prayer to God. I said, "God, I want to wake up in the morning and never have the desire again for any of this. And then I'll do this platform thing, you know, that I've been, you know, this calling." And so it was like making a deal with God. Well, but I knew if I waited one more day, I had 2 pathways in my life. It was like I compared it to, I used to work at a drive-in movie theater. Y'all probably don't know what that is. But I worked at this drive-in movie theater, and we'd have at intermission, you'd have two reels. So there would be another movie and another, you know, maybe 2 movies to choose from. Well, reel A would be my calling, and then reel B would be wherever that bad path was taking me. And I stood there that night and I said, okay, and I knew if I waited one more day, real A was not an option. But I woke up that morning and it was gone. And the desires were gone, and it was a miracle for me. But so I wanted to keep my word to God, and I started, about a week later, these guys had taken the company, and I needed to borrow money for $30,000 for a few months. I like telling this story because it's kind of funny. And I had to borrow money, and I was petrified of people with ties and that ate with more than 2 forks, right? I didn't think I was worthy. And so I had to walk into this place I hadn't been before, and these guys that were going to borrow me this money for a couple months, and they had never met me before. I walk in there, and there's a CIO, a CFO, a CEO, and I'm going, and I walk in there with a pillow and 3 jars of foam and a T-shirt, right? And I walk in there and I said, yeah, I have this business and I have this pillow I invented, and I said, these guys took it from me. They were stealing it from me, and I used to be a crack cocaine addict, and I'm telling them all this stuff. I'll borrow this money. I'll pay you back $10,000 extra in 2 months. And the one guy goes, when did you quit crack? I said, last Thursday. But they ended up giving me that money because I was just the passion, and they didn't even check my ID because I know that I didn't have a driver's license. Well, the point I'm making is I had so much passion and believed in it so much that I just, it was convincing, right? Well, then I started to notice something. Now I'm going to get to where we're at. I looked around me and I come out of this addiction. Now I've been like for decades in this thing where I didn't think politics affected me. I didn't think my Christian values had been planted when I was a kid. I didn't know it. I didn't know a conservative from a liberal. I didn't know anything. I had never voted. But I did notice around me things had changed. It was like, what happened? I went to my kids' softball game and they're giving out first place trophies halfway through the tournament. I go, what's going on here? The lady goes, well, little Johnny cried last year, didn't get a trophy. I go, well, little Johnny's terrible at softball. But I saw all these things that I'm going, what, God had been taken out of our schools, my kids, I'm going, what are they teaching you? And all these things, we had a president giving money to an evil empire, and I'm starting to notice this going on here, where, different freedoms, this political correctness was running rampant. By the way, that's one of the greatest things Donald Trump did was smash that right away. We couldn't, but they started attacking me with that, and I'm going, what are you talking about? You're trying to shame me, but I had seen, now I look back and I'm going, wow, what did I miss? Because I was just blinded by it. And anyway, by the spring of 2015, I'll backtrack a little bit. So in 2011, I said, if no one's going to take my pillow, I'm going to bring it to the world and right to the world with an infomercial. And I had this dream. And this is the American dream here. I'll tell you, I told my friends and family, let's all pool our money. No box stores would take us. Nobody would take my pillow. We were doing shows throughout the country for years, like home shows and stuff. Well, I said, you guys, I had this dream. It's going to be the biggest infomercial in the world. And my friends, family, they all believed me. We pooled our money, and we went to film it, and all the naysayers are going, you can't do this. Infomercials don't work. You need to have an actor. I said, I just want to do it like I did at the shows with a friend of mine and make it real. And they said, it's not going to work. And I said, well, I'm doing it anyway. And we went to film it, and there was a real audience. Now, I had always had this fear of rejection, so talking in front of people, I would have said would be the last thing I'd ever do in my life, because you can't get rejected if you don't talk, right? Well, we went to film this, and the night before, they brought in a real producer the night before from California, and I'm doing my reads, and he texted the other guy, said, this is the worst guy I've ever seen. He'll never make it on TV. And the next day, he's right, I see the audience, I'm going, and there's for the first line took an hour to film, and I said, can you just take away the teleprompter and bring out a table that I can just put it in front of me, and like I did at the shows, and we did it just naturally like that, so I could be myself, and that aired October 7th, 2011 at 3 in the morning. I was living in my sister's basement with nothing. That's all I had was just a couple hundred pillows and a dream. I had 10 employees, and when that aired, 40 days later, I had 500 employees. Just, you know. And that could only happen in the United States. It's the American dream on steroids, you know. And I want to say, then I'm going to get up to where I'm so involved now in you know, out there for backing of the greatest president in history. And in the spring of 2015, I had a dream that I would be in a room with Donald Trump, and I'm going, and I get these God dreams, and it's, God's guided me to where my calling. I just keep getting. I'm going. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. You know, it's scary as He keeps putting your calling up there, but I've lived with no fear. I've just put the, you know, I've only put the fear of the Lord, and that's it. Well, but I had this dream, and I'm going, what would I have to do with Donald Trump? And a month later, he came down that escalator. And when he came down there, I'm going, wow, there's no way I'm ever going to see someone that's running for president, some ex-crack addict from Minnesota. And here, divine appointments started happening. And you all in your own lives, you need to look for these where God's leading you for your calling. And things started happening. I went over to Israel, and I'd never been there before. And amazing place. You all got to go there, proving Jesus Christ's existence. But I started as soon as you know, I started paying attention now to this election that was going to be coming up in 2016, and I started just diving in and saying, you know, to politics and, you know, what's a conservative, what's a liberal, and I started looking here. I'm going, how come everything I had in my beliefs were right here in this conservative section? And I'm going through the internet, and I'm going checking out this stuff. I'm going, okay, and I'm going, why would anybody want some of these things that were over here? It didn't make sense to me at all. And then I started looking back and seeing what decisions were made way back when that manifested to where we had gotten today, away from our values of this country, you know, one nation under God. And that's where you see me say where I said God had taken a nation and turned its back on God. We had taken God out of the schools when I said that from the Rose Garden. Every part of that, I'm starting to look, I'm going, these decisions were made decades ago, and they just kept stealing from us a little bit every day. Every day it was like, but I noticed it all at once because I had ignored it for decades. So it was like, so I started learning this. Well, got back from Israel, and it was with the guy that really knew about politics over there. So we were arguing, and he's telling me who he thinks is going to be president. I said, I wouldn't have had this dream. It's going to be Donald Trump. Well, anyway, went to the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. by a divine appointment. I was picked out of 12 people to pray with Ben Carson in a room when he was still running for president. And in that room, a guy prophesied and said, a couple of you in this room are going to become great friends and help change the course we're on. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, and I felt like one of them was me. I didn't know who the other one was, but Ben and I are great friends now. And so I'm looking at these things, and I'm going, these things don't happen to a person, you know, from where I come up. They were like mini miracles to me. Well, then, in the summer of 2016, it was late July, and I was on a plane flight to California, and I'm sitting there in the bulkhead, and I got a magazine about Donald Trump, and I just shut it, and I said, God, I need to know right now, did I really see this? What am I going to have to do? I feel like I have this calling to, you know, where this is taking me. I'm trying to guess where it's taking me, right? Well, I said, I need to know, you know, now, and please. And I shut the magazine. My phone dings, and it says, Mike, this is Donald Trump. Will you meet me in Trump Tower in New York City? And I'm going, God, you know, and it was, and that my surprise, the flight attendants are going, are you okay? I go, yes, it's a miracle, you know, and. But for me, it was God answered my time in real time. It wasn't about this meeting. It was I was answered by God in that moment, and it was a miracle. And so I knew I was on the right path, and that meeting came to fruition on August 15th, 2016. It was going into his office. They said, you're never going to be with them alone. Whatever you do, don't tell them you were a crack addict, and all these things. I'm going, okay. Well, as it happened with these circumstances, I walked into his office and I was alone. I walked in and he says, Mike, you always wear your cross. Are you a Christian? I said, yes, Mr. Trump, and this is a divine appointment, right? And I'm all nervous. Within about 30 seconds, it was just, he was like a real person. And I'm going, and I had been everywhere. I've been everywhere from no forks to four forks. And I was reading him to what, what he was all about, why I was there. Well, right away, and it was like, hey, you make all your stuff here in the USA. He goes, I want to bring the jobs back. We're talking about this, and I said, yeah, and I used to be a crack addict, and I look at him, and he's going, and I want to take, the addiction. I want to help addiction. I'm going to help millions of addicts with my foundation and my recovery network. And then he says, and I want to stop the drugs pouring in. But anyway, it was businessman to businessman, and I'm going, and everything he said, it was problem solution, but it was like, and this will manifest to this. That's a gift he has, okay? This gift of problem solution and knowing what it's going to manifest to. And so we sat and talked. It was about 40 minutes. And I walked out of there and I go, he's going to be the greatest president in history. Well, I look back now, of course, God set up that meeting, but I'll tell you, I got out of there and I went to his employees because anything I go 100% all in, I do my due diligence. And I went and talked to his employees, a lot of them, and every one of them said, he's a great boss, a great leader, a great person. They said he's done something for me personally. I just couldn't believe it. It was going, wow, everything I just seen, I validated, right? So I couldn't wait to get back to Minnesota and tell the press, tell the media, I just met with President-elect Donald Trump. And I went back there. And I went to do this press release, and at my board of directors, they go, we're going to lose half our business. You can't do this, Mike. And I walked out of the boardroom, and here my CMO came out, and she says, we didn't get all this way by you not listening to God. I walked back in there and go, we didn't get all this way by me not listening to God. I'm going to do that press release. So I do that press release. Now, you got to realize I was the darling of Minnesota there. I'd never been political or anything. I do that press release and tell all the papers and the media, hey, I met with Donald Trump. Didn't even tell him what we talked about. It was crickets. Then it was an attack. They attacked me. I was a racist. I was everything you could imagine. I'm going, what did I do? But I knew I was on the right path. Then I really went all in. I'm going, okay. It's like when they boycott me now, they'll go boycott Mike Lindell and My Pillow, and the other bots and trolls on Twitter will go, don't boycott him, he'll double his ads. We see enough of that jerk. And but here, what happened then, of course I went all in. You all know the story. The Better Business Bureau attacked me. The lawyers in California attacked my company. All this stuff. But you know what? He gets elected, and here and now, everything that happened, well, look what it manifests to. This great president, what he's done, and with these bringing back the conservative values that our country was founded on. And all these, I was so proud. I told my friends back then, he's going to do this and this. And now we have this proof of concept, right? Our country, he smashed political correctness, so they tried to cancel us out. They've been trying to cancel out, With My Pill, they gave up on me. They're going, we can't, he's not going to change, and I'm not going to change. Like I say, I don't have fear of them. I only have fear of the Lord. And I want to tell you all right now, that where our country was headed, and when I came out of addiction, and that the seeds that are planted way back when, this is why this is so important. Anybody that wants to give your money to help this country, Turning Point USA, if they're donors out, I'll do a commercial right now for that. There's no better place, because I've seen what it manifests to, you guys, and what I noticed then too, I'd speak, and I went to my college in Minnesota for 1 quarter back in 1979, but they'd have me back there to speak, right? And I'd go there and speak, and they'd say, Mike, whatever you do, don't talk about God. The professors say that. So I'm about a minute into it, and I'd start telling them, and Jesus, and I would get done speaking, and they'd stay there for 2 hours, the media and everything, and I'd get done speaking, and they go, Mike, now remember, I told you not to talk about God. And then they'd have me back again. Well, then, they'd have me back in. Now remember, I told you. I don't know who upstairs is controlling that narrative, but it was just a suppression. But I do it every time. Well, obviously they don't have me back now because now it's gotten political. So they go, they're going to say, whatever you do, don't talk about Donald Trump. Well, they know that ship would sailed a long time ago, right? Well, so I haven't been invited back, but you can see, I want to tell you, you can see decisions. Now I see how politics affects everything we do, okay? I'll just give you addiction. My platform of addiction, do you know that there's 30-some states that have laws on the books that in order to counsel an addict, you have to go to college 4 years, swim the English Channel, climb 6 trees, do 58 push-ups, and all this stuff, and I'm going, that's crazy. And someone that's wounded, an addict or whatever that has problems inside, they need to hear it from someone that's made it through. Some people, addicts have forgotten more about addiction than those guys will ever know. And it's who put these regulations in place, right? Well, now we've all seen, or I've seen, what politics, how it affects everything. And I knew now how we got to where we were when I came out of addiction. This has been going on for decades. They've been taking a little piece of our freedoms every single day for decades and decades. And so where I stand now, you all know I've just went all in. I believe in our president. I believe in our country. I believe in, how politics affect everything. They go back to our kids in schools where they start there with our kids and change our culture. Then you get to colleges and they're this narrative in colleges that, you guys are, and when Charlie told me that, to bring your great leaders and get appointed in the colleges, I'm going, what a great idea. You guys are the new foundation of the future for our country. And now I can say, because I met you all outside last night, I can say I did my due diligence, right? Well, I'm going to tell you, now I'm going to bring it up to present day here with the President Trump. I have went all in because I did my due diligence. We know what he's about. He's representing all of us. And I'm going to tell you right now, here's the miracle we're living in right now. On election night, we have a miracle that happened. At 11:15, the machines that were set, these Dominion machines, they all broke. The algorithms broke at 11:15 because Donald Trump was going to win anyway, in spite of the cheat, because they didn't expect that he would get upwards of 80 million votes by America. So they underestimated. They underestimated the cheat, just like they did in 2016. There's a lot of stuff in 16 that they didn't do because they didn't think they had to. So this time, they go, well, we'll do this. There's many ways they cheated, but the big thing was the machines. So at 11:15, had that not happened, we would have all, they'd have ran it out. Donald Trump would have lost. We'd all went, oh, it was mail-in voting. Better luck next time. No. God let this happen at 11:15, where then they had to really, it's like cheating in a poker game and you get caught. What are you going to do? Now they had to pull out their big cheat, and these algorithms that went straight up, okay? They had to backfill Wisconsin and Michigan and all these places. When they did that, now you guys all know, I look at deviations every day of my life. If a radio station does $2,000 in Dubuque, Iowa, and it's only supposed to do 200, I find out that's a deviation. How did it happen? Something had to make that happen, okay? So it wasn't just all these deviations because they could argue them. Well, all of them, and all the states that were left shut down at the exact same time. That's another deviation. It's impossible, okay? So I look at all these mathematics impossibilities, but I didn't stop there. As I stand before you, I can say 100% that all this happened because I've talked to Sidney Powell. I talked to General Flynn every day. I talked to Lynn Wood. All these investigations going on. I've gotten involved because everything's on the line here. And I have done I know what's out there. And here I can tell you what's going to happen is Donald Trump will be your president for the next 4 years. 100% he will be your president. And I could, And I could sit here and tell you that because I've done my due diligence. I'm not just up here telling you this because he's the greatest president ever. We became friends and all these things, but because I've seen what they're trying. This isn't about him right now. This is about our country and the world. The whole world is watching. Do you know they're having rallies all around the world because they know the freedoms? This is their big attack on humanity. That's what they're doing. This is what they're doing. But I'm going to tell you how this is going to play out. The way it's going to play out, everyone over here on the left, there's Democrats over here that really believe they won fair and square. But everybody has to know, when you're all shown this, and don't ask me the timing, but it's going to happen. When you commit a murder, there's no statute of limitations, okay? You can say January 6th, you can say this or this. You can't. When there is a murder, there's no statute. This was one of the biggest crimes ever in the history. And I'll tell you, if we let this happen, you have no idea how it will manifest out. It would be horrific. Okay, if you manifest it out, but God's not going to let this happen. But here's what's going to happen. Everyone, including people over here, are going to see what I've seen and what I know. And when they see this, they're going to go, you know what, Donald Trump, but he did win, okay? And when they do that, it's not going to be a civil war. You don't have a civil war if you know the truth. If the truth comes out, there's nothing to fight about. This is what was won here, fair and square. That's what elections are. And what this is going to manifest out to, and by the way, the media has been trying to hide this for 3 weeks now, or a month. They've been trying to hide this. With my platform, I'm trying to get the word out. This is real, it happened, and just because judges keep suppressing it, this thing goes so deep that this is a spiritual warfare in the country and the world. This is, and this is our one time. We are blessed to be part of this. We're part of the greatest revival in history. We're going to bring our country back to God. We're going to bring people back to Jesus. We're going to bring fair elections back to the whole world. Sometimes, I'm going to tell you what the other thing that's going to manifest out of this is fair elections. You can't use technology. The best technology here is paper ballot, one ballot at a time, and that's it. You cannot use machines. When I'm in manufacturing and with my pillow, there's certain things where you make it by hand where it's better than any technology. And I'll tell you what, every election, every leader in this world, I'm going to tell you why you cannot use technology. I think my good friend, Governor Christie Noem, said this yesterday. If you have an electronic election, it's the bad people ahead of you in technology, in that moment in time. Because I get attacked every day at my pillow, my computers and everything, and it's just a battle. Okay, we corrected it. Okay, they went ahead of us. They corrected it. Then you're just betting on two people. You're betting on two forces, the force of evil, the force of good. It has to go back to paper. And this is an example around the world. We have to have that. So I am so optimistic and so blessed to be a part of the miracle that happened on election night for the first time in history. Fraudulent elections have been going on forever, cheating. But now the cheat is, because it's technology, is of historical proportions. But they got caught. They made a mistake at 11:15 on election night. That's the miracle, y'all. But the miracle is every one of us, you got to get around the media. We got to get the word out and give our president. We got to pray for our president that he has the strength and that he has a peace about him, that we're all behind him in this country. Everybody, people on the left, people on the right, we want the truth, and the truth needs to be told in spite of all these politicians. One thing I've known in politics, and here's what needs to change. Politicians, most of the ones I've met, have either a political agenda or a personal agenda. You know what I met? The one that doesn't have that 100% is our great president, Donald Trump. He makes decisions based on what's right for the people and all people. He's got a gift from God. That's another reason he was chosen by God for such a time as this. He makes here's a problem, here's a solution, and here's what it's going to manifest to, and he's right every time, you know. And I'm gonna end with this. You guys are our future. And you guys have had seeds planted, and I wish I would have had them planted way back then. Maybe everything, they asked me, Mike, would you change anything in your life? And I said, no, not if it wouldn't be where I'm at right now, you know. And I can't, anybody that has regrets in their life, you know, learn from it, learn from those mistakes, and that'll get you where you're at. And you all, for the people I met here, you're all on the right path. And I want to say right now, that God chose Donald Trump for 8 years, not 4. And I see my time is up. I don't know if I have time for a couple questions or not. God bless you.
The difference between the Soviet Union's Pravda and the American media is people in the Soviet Union knew they were being lied to.
Planned Parenthood sent me a cease and desist letter. They wanted me to stop. They wanted to make me scared. They wanted me to stop in my tracks.
That's what I'm here to talk about today, how the government goes after the messenger and refuses to actually hear the message.
Welcome to Turning Point, Project Veritas Edition. Who's ready to go to the gulags? Who's ready to go to the gulags? Who's ready to be rated by Kamala Harris? I'm excited. Okay. Now, Ocasio-Cortez says there's going to be some things happening, lists of people. They say there's going to be truth and reconciliation commissions. I'm excited. Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Say when.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And the thing about the gulags is you can have great sex in the gulags, according to Democratic Party officials who told us that.
There's a reason Joseph Stalin had gulags, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, gulags were a lot better than what the CIA has told us that they were. Like, people were actually paid a living wage in gulags. They had conjugal visits in gulags.
Conjugal visits, and we need to be re-educated in these gulags.
Gulags were actually meant for re-education. It was for enemies of the state to learn how to not be enemies of the state and to learn the value of a hard day's work.
There
right?
might be 200 million people that believe in the Second Amendment who might re-educate them if we get re-educated. But, they don't think too highly about journalists like me, that's for sure.
What about James O'Keefe?
In Project Veritas, I mean, he's got a special place in hell.
But the thing about these people is that it's funny, they're being recorded, but they don't know that they're being recorded, and sometimes it's really funny.
You ever heard of the Veritas Project?
Yeah, that's true. Like the one on the door.
Huh?
The what?
The Veritas Project? Or Project Veritas?
No, what is that?
It's basically a Republican spy group that likes to go into places and try and just record people doing stupid
Do they think you're that stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually do.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
unfortunately, people fall for that.
No, people fall for it. People fall for it. But they won't. They'll do anything. They'll break any law. They don't believe in laws. They don't believe in justice. They'll cross any line. Don't take my word for it.
2020 is a political revolution. I am going to do everything morally acceptable to win. I will lie, I will cheat, I will steal, because that's morally acceptable in this political environment.
So I go visit with this guy and pull my best Dateline NBC Chris Hansen impersonation and talk to him. He's wearing a mask of the congressperson that he works for, even though he claims he didn't work for anybody in the Democratic Party, and let's hear what he has to say.
Why do you think that's morally acceptable in this environment, to lie, cheat, and steal?
Yes, I will lie to people who lie to us. I will cheat people who cheat us, and I stand by everything that I said.
This guy might be the first person in Project Veritas history that actually stands by his remarks and doesn't change his tune, but there's an obsession with these people. I don't even know, they'll never tell me how they're going to do the fraud. That's the problem.
How do you cheat? What type of cheating are we going to be doing in this election?
I can't answer that question.
No, they can't. They can't answer that. And they're obsessed with chopping people's heads off. A lot of young people, a lot of young Americans against socialism who don't know about these guillotines, these crazy people. They're obsessed with violence. Obsessed.
That's all I gotta say. Option A, what I'm proposing. Option 2, slicey boys.
Slicey boys. I don't even know what that is. I mean, they're literally obsessed.
Why the obsession with guillotines?
It is a readily known symbol for anybody who has been in any sort of political and revolutionary talk.
You know, it's funny, they never practice what they preach, interestingly enough.
That's a really nice car, man. That's a really expensive car.
All right, let's talk about some voter fraud, right? Because voter fraud doesn't exist. Let's go to New Hampshire. Apparently there was a guy in New Hampshire who voted both as a woman and a man at the same address. We spoke with this person, and he admitted to us that he voted twice.
But I got in trouble because I voted twice, and the cops found out because I went to get the voter ID, right? He said it's not a big priority, but, you know, or it could be freaking shoved under a bunch of papers and forgot about.
Who said that?
The cop.
Now, apparently the government knew about this for a year, but didn't prosecute him until we recorded him. This is a picture of the person. He dressed up like a woman. And, you know, I walked into the Attorney General's office with a copy of the videotape asking, this guy created a voter ID card for a person that doesn't exist, and the Attorney General said this to me.
Can you create a fake voter ID card that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of there being a voter card in the state of New Hampshire.
Not even aware that there's a voter ID card? And you're the top deputy in the Attorney General's office that handles this issue. I spoke with his boss.
There is a voter ID card in the state of New Hampshire.
He confirmed there is an ID card, and they prosecuted this guy the next day. They arrested him for double voting. Now what's interesting is the powers that be always seek to investigate me, not the people that vote twice. In fact, the investigator in New Hampshire, this guy named Richard Tracy, handed me a criminal grand jury subpoena, not this person that voted twice. I had to do a double take again because Richard Tracy, this guy's name was actually Dick Tracy, investigator. Now, there are a lot of Dicks that come after Project Veritas. This guy was the Attorney General of New Hampshire in 2013. His name, I'm not making this up, was Richard Head. The guy's name was actually Dickhead, which a fact that he disguises with a middle initial, I guess, to try to, I mean, this guy actually sort of looks like a dickhead. But it's very important that you don't be intimidated when they come after you. You run towards the fire. You don't back down. You double down. You keep releasing videos. There's actually a chapter in my first book called The Rise of Dickhead. I encourage you to read that. On to Texas, San Antonio, Texas, where they say there's no voter fraud. But there's no voter fraud. But this person, Raquel Rodriguez, talks about how you can buy votes. Listen to this.
$55,000 up front, 5,000.
That's right.
Cash.
Cash.
When you do things like this for votes, you're talking between $5 to $8 per vote. I'm just letting you know, so you have an idea. And I'm going to bring $3,500 to the plate.
Okay.
Countywide.
What I do in picking up the ballots when he was with me,
That's illegal. I could go to jail.
She could go to jail, she says, so I confront this woman. And the funny thing about this, the illegal stuff on her possession, and she's trying to hide it while I'm talking to her. She's like, no, don't look at that. I don't want to put this away. I don't want you to see what I'm doing. Now, I also talked to this guy who, I guess, worked with her. This guy's actually a Republican. Will go after anybody who's committing corruption, Democrats or Republicans. Now, this guy, I'm at some political rally in Texas, and this guy runs away from me the moment he gets to the rally.
Do you not know who Raquel Rodriguez is? He's ignoring us, and I'm not going to stop.
And then he runs back to his campaign bus, and to my shock, he drives the bus away, but he leaves all of his campaign staffers at the rally. And they're pissed because they got left there by her boss. This woman asked me for like a ride home after she got left at the place.
I don't know. I didn't mean to get you right. No, I'm just asking questions. My job is to ask questions. Sometimes people don't answer them. You want me to give you a ride? You want me to get you an Uber? I don't know if I can. That's an illegal campaign.
We're in Project Veritas. Let's go to Minnesota. Mike Lindell's state. Now, you know what they say? Voter fraud doesn't exist. Voter fraud is not possible. There's no such thing as voter fraud. The director of the FBI said, there's no such thing as voter fraud. Well, how about this videotape? A man in a car covered in ballots. If you were writing a South Park episode, you could not come up with a more outrageous example of voter fraud in Minnesota.
Numbers don't lie.
The guy is bragging about all the ballot harvesting he is doing. He posted it to his Snapchat. I didn't record him. He recorded himself. There's no evidence. Of course, our friends at the wonderful New York Times says that this video is part of a coordinated disinformation campaign. A coordinated disinformation campaign making claims without evidence. You have a video of a man in a car with absentee ballots all over the place. It's illegal to have more than 3 in your possession. But the New York Times says, no evidence of voter fraud. This is how awful these people are in the media. This is why we must fight the media, which I will tell you how I'm going to do that in a minute. We have a videotape of them giving money in exchange for absentee ballots. This is, you can see the cash exchange. But the New York Times says, allegations come solely from unnamed people who speak with Project Veritas, whose faces are not shown. In the video, you clearly see a man. There is the ballot harvester's face. You clearly see the voter. There's his face. And you even see the money being exchanged. But the New York Times says, whose faces are not shown? It's like out of George Orwell's 1984. It's like black is white, truth is ignorance. They're literally stating the opposite of reality. The New York Times is tampering with reality. You could see the ballots. You could hear their voices saying that what they're doing is illegal. You could hear Osman al-Dakan say he doesn't care that he's breaking the law.
That's illegal. Why? We don't get illegal.
I mean, and the New York Times concludes that this doesn't prove voter fraud. I want you to know who you're dealing with here. The only thing that's going to convince them is video tape. Oh, and then they conclude probably part of a coordinate. They didn't have the balls to say it was. They said it was probably part of a coordinated disinformation campaign. But this reverberated throughout the mainstream media. They recycled this New York Times hit piece.
A video claiming there is massive voter fraud in Minnesota has now...
Video can't claim anything. It's an inanimate recording, but we'll continue with this Fox 9 episode.
It's now been seen more than 1 million times on YouTube.
But tonight you will hear for the first time from the man at the center of those allegations, who says the group behind that report, Project Veritas, isn't telling you the truth.
But all of this fits the Project Veritas MO, according to Stanford researchers, who say it appears to be a coordinated disinformation campaign. James O'Keefe meeting with Trump's Minnesota campaign chair, Mike Lindell of MyPillow fame, right before the story was rushed out to compete with the New York Times blockbuster on President Trump's income taxes.
Now, they claim that because we met with Mike Lindell 1 or 2 days prior to the release, that it's a coordinated disinformation campaign. By the way, the New York Times tax return story didn't cite one source, didn't have one document. They didn't show any recordings whatsoever. And they had the balls to say that I use unidentified sources? That's rich. And they say I'm probably doing coordinated disinformation. This guy, I encourage you, tweet at him and tell him, give him a piece of your mind, sat down and interviewed the bank robber. Basically said, so what is your side of the story, Mr. Bank Robber criminal who committed all the fraud?
Those $200 was for a sick kid that lives in Somalia.
Oh my God. The $200 was for a sick child in Somalia. Let's just run that with fact. Let's just take his word for it. Let's be the paragon of investigative journalism and just interview the criminal on the record and broadcast to the masses what he tells us to be true. And USA Today, that crappy publication, cross-cited the New York Times and said that, yes, indeed, this was a coordinated disinformation campaign. And Facebook.com, which works with USA Today to fact-check, labeled all the posts of the Minnesota video as disinformation because they work with USA Today. And before you know it, you have information on Facebook saying that our video was false information. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what they do. And this is how they do it. And you have two choices in this life. You can give up, you can quit, you can cry, you can despair, or you can fight the bastards. And you know what? That is why we decided to sue the New York Times. We're going to sue the shit out of them. And we're going to win. If it costs us $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it costs, because we hide from nothing, we run from nothing, we don't plead the fifth, we don't back down. And Project Veritas has never actually lost a lawsuit. You know why? Because we don't surrender, because we don't compromise, because we don't give them an inch. And we sued the FBI and won in a week. They put me on, they wouldn't allow me to buy a firearm. They put me on a false NICS list. We have the best lawyers money can buy. This is Jamie Dean. He's great. He's a blind guy. He's a blind man, but he's a phenomenal lawyer. He's such a good guy that when we won in federal court in North Carolina, he's blind, but he carried my stuff down the stairs for me, which is very nice of him. Now, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And at Project Veritas, we have all these whistleblowers, these brave people that now come to us from the inside. I got started in this by getting a message from a girl on Facebook. What can I do? You hear the question every day. What can I do? Hannah Giles, 11 years ago, sent me a message on Facebook and said, James, I never met this girl before. She said, you know, I'd like to go into Acorn dressed as a prostitute. Usually you delete messages like this when you get them from random strangers. But I said, you know what, that's a good idea. There needs to be a pimp in this situation. She said, let's go do it. We walked into an office with a hidden camera embedded in my satin tie and recorded these workers telling us how to declare the underage prostitutes as dependents on our tax reform.
Is it against the law in Maryland? Prostitution?
Anything that the government's not getting money from is always against the law.
Let me make sure there's a code for it, okay?
A code for prostitution?
You might have to name it something else. Performance arts, let's see. Independent artists. You could be that. Dancing?
It's not dancing, trust me.
But dancing is considered an art? I mean, you know,
sex is kind of like dancing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. You're a performing artist.
Performing artist?
But you are. Okay, so you're not lying. So stop saying busted.
Got it.
Or you could refer to yourself as a genital contractor. Used vagina salesman.
That wasn't the only office. Every office we went in, they told us how to lie and cover up from the cops. In this office, they figured my girlfriend was a prostitute.
My girlfriend's a prostitute.
Okay.
And I don't know if...
I kind of figured that.
Yeah, especially what she was wearing, you know, was
I'm using the money that she's getting, you know what I mean?
Right, but when the police ask you, you don't know where it's coming from. It's what we're trying to tell you.
All right.
We're looking out for you.
These Acorn workers were looking out for the criminals. This was us, 2 kids with nothing but a video camera and also a YouTube account.
You know who broke this story? These two. You're telling me that 2 kids from the cast of High School Musical 3 can break this story with a video camera and their grandmother's chinchilla coat, and you got nothing?
It actually was my grandmother's chinchilla coat. Now, politics is downstream from culture. cultures downstream from information. This led to a South Park episode.
It's a kissing company. And you're making a profit? Oh, sure. My black employee sure is over there. One time she made $2,000 on one customer.
All right, get out of here. I'm not falling for it.
But I heard Acorn helps pinching their bitches.
So, after this came out, the House of Representatives voted to defund Acorn. The Senate of the United States, democratically controlled, voted 83-7 to defund Acorn. This happened in 1 week, and then President Obama signed legislation to defund Acorn.
For Acorn? You know, frankly, it's not really something I've followed closely. I didn't even know that Acorn was getting a whole lot of federal money.
Both the Senate and the House have voted to cut it off.
You know, what I know is that what I saw on that video was certainly inappropriate.
Certainly inappropriate. Now, they like to lie about me. They like to attack us. They said that we went after Acorn because they register black people. And the late Andrew Breitbart and I got a retraction from the Washington Post. It was a great retraction. It was the first of its kind. We've gotten over 330 retractions from media outlets. Andrew and I were sitting in a hotel room one night, Andrew Breitbart, the late Andrew Breitbart, he says, there needs to be a mascot for these retractions. Maybe an animal, like a mascot, like a monkey or an elephant, no? How about a llama? No. How about an alpaca? And then Retracto, the correction alpaca, was born. Cue the Retracto theme song.
We need the news, not projection, or he's gonna demand a correction.
Come on out.
Retracto,
the correction alpaca. Retracto. Retracto, the correction alpaca. Retracto, he's coming at you. Retracto, the correction
All right, now let's get serious. I don't think it'll break. You've got to have fun. You got to fight back. Now, get serious for a minute. The brave insiders inside CNN, we have so many people on the inside of these institutions, all right? CNN, New York Times, one of the people inside CNN gave us the dial-in and got access to all of Jeff Zucker's 9 a.m. calls, and we live streamed the president of CNN's phone calls.
You're unmuted.
Hey, Jeff Zucker, you there? Hey, this is James O'Keefe. We've been listening to your CNN calls for basically 2 months, recording everything. Just wanted to ask you some questions if you have a minute. Do you still feel you're the most trusted name in news? Because I have to say, from what I've been hearing on these phone calls, I don't know about that. I mean, we got a lot of recordings that indicate you're not really that independent of a journalist.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So everybody, in light of that, I think what we'll do is we'll set up a new system, and we'll be back with you. We'll do the rest of the call.
You might have heard the man defecate on camera there for a minute. Jeff Zucker, president of CNN, being live streamed his 9 a.m. calls. We recorded 2 months of these calls, and one of the insiders who work with Kerry Porch described why he decided to blow the whistle on CNN.
I decided to wear the camera because I didn't see any other option. When I came to work at CNN, I mean, it was my dream job. And that dream actually just turned into a nightmare.
Now, I'm proud to say that the CNN insider is actually here today. Kerry, would you come on stage?
How's it going, Turning Point? Thank you. James. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not betray CNN. CNN betrayed me They betrayed you. They betrayed the American people when they abandoned their journalistic mission. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and future leaders of this great republic, this moment in space and time right now is our 1776. The new battle for our republic is the war over information. The battle over whom is allowed to see what at what given time. This is our fight. Truth is now subjective. Hashtag 1984. We need you. Be brave. Do something.
Thanks, Kerry. But that wasn't the only insider. Sometimes you meet men who walk amongst giants. This man, Erie, Pennsylvania, United States postal worker, contacted us and said he saw them backdate absentee ballots. They backdated ballots before Election Day, and he blew the whistle.
And I heard him say to the supervisor that they messed up yesterday. I was like, oh, what did they mess up on? And he told the supervisor that they had postmarked one of the ballots for the 4th instead of the 3rd.
He actually heard them say this.
For 3rd.
And he told us they said it, and then they sent federal agents from the FBI Inspector General to coerce him to change his story. They had no interest in investigating voter fraud. They were trying to get him to change his mind, these deep state agents, and thank God Richard had a recording device in his pocket and recorded 2 hours of that meeting. Listen to this.
I'm not, well, I am actually. I am trying to twist you a little bit because in that, believe it or not, your mind will kick in. I am not scaring you, but I am scaring you.
Trying to scare him, twist him. This is the manifestation of the deep state, but Richard released those recordings. I mean, he was scared. They were trying to change his story.
They were grilling the hell out of me.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm kind of pissed. I feel like I just got played.
Richard actually had to deal with the Washington Post getting leaked, something he signed. He didn't even know what he signed. They said that anonymous sources had worked with them. There's only 2 anonymous sources, the people that he recorded. And Richard told me on the record that our war is not overseas. He said, as a veteran, as a combat Marine, Richard Hopkins, mailman, told me that our war is here.
I was in Afghanistan and Iraq. 2 tours while I was in the Marines. I was a Marine for 5 years. And I'll tell y'all, I'd rather be out back in Afghanistan getting shot at by Afghans, honest to God, than, having to be in this kind of position.
So you basically aren't working right now?
Nope. I've actually had my mother-in-law call me and be like crying, if you need anywhere to live. And I was like, I thought you hated me. My daughter's 4, so she doesn't know anything about this. She doesn't understand this. This isn't someday. She's proud of me for what I'm doing here.
A celebrity is a big name, but a hero is a big man. And sometimes you get a chance to meet giants amongst men, anonymous heroes, who ask for nothing, who ask for none of this, but exist to serve a higher purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Hopkins, now unemployed, is here.
In 2007, I swore an oath to protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when I joined the post office and I began working with them, they also made me do a similar oath. So when I overheard my own postmaster breaking that oath, it disgusted me. So I felt I needed to say something. And I feel you don't even need an oath to keep, to be able to see something and say something. So if you can, if it happens for you and you see something, say it.
All of you could be to do this. Every one of you has a camera. Your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your mothers, your parents, your friends can blow the whistle. You are the future. Only you will do it, not the politicians. To quote the late Maya Angelou, they can shoot us with their words. They can cut us with their eyes. They can kill us with their hatefulness. But still, like air, we rise. We rise. We rise.
If you catch me at the border, I got visas in my name. If you come around here, I'll make them all day. I get one down in a second if you wait. I fly like paper, get high like planes. If you catch me at the border, I got visas in my name.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Jeff Myers.
Sometimes I think sitting on trains. Every step I get to, I'm clocking that game. Everyone's a winner, we're making our fame. Bonafide hustler, making my name. Sometimes I think sitting on trains. Every step I get to, I'm clocking that game. Everyone's a winner, we're making our fame. Bonafide.
Thank you. I know a lot of people are asking the question, how do I become a person of courage like that? My name is Dr. Jeff Myers. I'm the president of Summit Ministries and Summit.org. Every summer I have the opportunity to invite hundreds of young adults to Manitou Springs, Colorado, this little hippie town tucked right in at the foot of Pikes Peak. And in that place, we talk about how a Christian worldview is the source of liberty and prosperity and hope, and how to embrace it and defend it so that you can become leaders. I hope that we'll have the opportunity to study together at some point. Before I did this job, however, I had the opportunity to be a professor and also to start several different businesses to help everybody from nonprofit organizations to corporations improve their ability to communicate and to lead well. I've had the opportunity to train 1 million people now in how to communicate the truth without fear, and that's what I want to talk about in about 15 minutes or so that we have today. Do you want to be the kind of person who can, even in your classes, communicate the truth without fear? There are two things you'll need to understand, but I'm going to get ready to go really fast here. Most people from Colorado speak at about 80 words a minute. I speak at about 150 with gusts up to 220 when I get excited about something. So I want you to text the word notes to 33233 to get all of the notes from this session, as well as all of the notes from the 2 workshops that I will tell you about that I'll be doing this afternoon in just a moment. Be sure you put the word notes in there, otherwise you will get a coupon from a beauty salon in New Jersey. Unless you want that, but just text the word notes, 33233. Got it? All right, I'm going to begin with a story that helps me understand the ground that we're dealing with. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to travel and speak in the city of New York. The condition was that I would have to rent a car and drive myself from location to location. This really made me nervous because I lived in a small town in Tennessee at the time. No one in my town would ever dream of blaring their horn at somebody else. In New York City, the horn is the most important part of the steering wheel. In my town, there's one highway. It's really easy to figure out where to go. In New York City, well, just look at the map. No self-respecting first grader would ever be a city planner for something like this. And yet, I was there to speak. So I got to the rental car agency and I asked the person, can you give me a map? This person assured me that if I got lost, there is a map above the passenger visor should I need it. I drove out onto the highway and immediately got lost. So I reached above the passenger visor and you'll never guess what. There was a piece of paper, so I pulled it out and unfolded it. Believe it or not, it was a map. Unfortunately, it was not this map of New York City, it was this map, Chicago. Now, this is a beautiful map. This is a great map. Chicago makes a lot of sense. If you get lost, you take 3 right turns and you're right back where you were before. If you do that here, you'll never be found again. You see, I was not in Chicago where I could use this beautiful map. I was in New York. I needed a map that described the contours of the city in which I found myself. The problem we have today when we try to stand for truth is that our professors and the news media give us something like a Chicago map when we're trying to navigate New York. They give us a wrong perspective, a wrong worldview. Now, in my town, in my little hippie town in Colorado, when somebody has something to say, they put a bumper sticker on their car. Congress, if only they could be so simple about it. The average year in Congress, there are 200 committees and subcommittees that convene to consider 9,500 different bills, 110,000 pages that would go from the floor to the ceiling of this room and 10 feet out onto the roof. And journalists are even worse. Every day, they develop and write 350 billion words. How are we ever going to make sense of all of this? The thing I want you to understand, that if you remember nothing else from this talk, remember this. The world of ideas is like a map. Ideas flow in patterns. Nobody is neutral. Everyone has a worldview. The New York Times is not neutral. The Washington Post is not neutral. Your professor, even your favorite professor, is not neutral. And here's the problem. There are 3 dominant counterfeit worldviews today that try to intentionally disguise what they really believe to be true about the world. If we can understand that, get below the surface, read the map, then we can make sense of the world of ideas. Here are these 3 worldviews briefly. Number 1, Marxism. Marxists say that the rich are the problem. Everybody knows that. But very few people have ever asked why a Marxist would say such a thing. Here is the underlying reality after having studied this for decades. Marxists believe that only the material world exists. There is no God, there is no Holy Spirit, there's no Jesus, there's nothing. There aren't even such things as ideas. There is no such thing as innovation. There's no such thing as inspiration. Only the material world exists. So if one person has more material wealth than someone else, it's because they stole it. And if they stole it from you, then it's not wrong to steal it back. The Marxist worldview is right out there in front. The Black Lives Matter organization co-founders said to the media, "We are trained Marxists." In fact, they put together a platform, and as I read through it, I compared it and realized about 75% of it comes directly from the Communist Manifesto. And almost no one understands how this is true. And yet, I work with a lot of church people. I work with a lot of Christians. I love this. I don't apologize for it. But I am a little bit embarrassed that 83% of Christian church-attending millennials strongly agree, or agree somewhat, that the root of society's problem is that rich people exploit the system in a way that hurts the working class. In other words, they have bought into a Marxist worldview because they have no idea that it stands completely at odds with everything they believe about God. Does this make sense so far? Second worldview, the counterfeit worldview that dominates in our world today, is secularism. Secularism says that religion is the problem. If we could just get these religious people to shut up and go back to their little homes and not give us any grief, then we could solve all of the world's problems. Well, why would a secularist say this? The secularist never proves that there is no God. The secularist assumes that there is no God and builds an entire perspective on life based on that assumption. To a secularist, with no evidence whatsoever, all God beliefs are considered to be like the tooth fairy. Several years ago, I was speaking at an event, and a lady came up to me and asked me, "Do you believe in God?" "Yes." "Do you believe that God is everywhere present?" I said, "Yes, in fact, I do." She said, "I would never teach that to my child. That's creepy." I said, "Well, I don't understand what's so creepy." And all of a sudden I realized She was talking about God from a secular viewpoint. She doesn't actually believe God exists. God is the fairy tale that she tells to her child at bedtime when the child cannot sleep. To her, the whole idea of God would be creepy if you tell the child that God is everywhere. And I understand, because to her, God is like Santa Claus. And I hate to say this just a few days before Christmas, but Santa Claus is creepy. You know what I'm saying? Santa Claus is a stalker. You've heard the song. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. If your reaction to Santa Claus growing up was like this, that is totally rational. But the secularist says that's how we should react when we think about God. Secularists are foaming at the mouth at the possibility of a Joe Biden administration. In fact, a group called the Secular Democrats of America recently sent a 28-page letter of policy demands to Joe Biden. And here was their quotation in the document. Disregard for science and disdain for expertise have reached an all-time high in this administration of magical thinkers and conspiracy theorists. We believe that now is the right time to disentangle government policy from the influence of sectarian religious interests that have become dangerously entrenched at all levels of government. And yet, 63% of Christian church-attending millennials strongly agree or agree somewhat that what is morally right and wrong changes over time based on society, which is a core secularist tenet. Let's do one more. Postmodernism. Postmodernism doesn't say that the rich are the problem or that religion is the problem. Postmodernism says that anyone who claims to know the truth of any kind is the problem. That we have no access to reality. All we have are our words to describe it. And you probably have had postmodern professors. Boy, do they love to use words in the most confusing possible way, right? The famous German philosopher Martin Heidegger, who was a founder of this movement, said, in the naming, the things named are called into their thinging. Thinging the unfold world in which things abide, and so are the abiding ones. By thinging, things carry out world. And all the people said, huh? Like, what? I don't understand exactly. And yet, it's a popular viewpoint. 60% of Christian church-attending millennials strongly agree or agree somewhat that no one can know for certain what meaning and purpose there is to life. At Summit Ministries, we make no apologies for teaching students a Judeo-Christian worldview, that through God we can know the truth and we can find freedom and prosperity. And I'm not the only one who says this. The atheist philosopher Luke Ferry, author of A Brief History of Thought, said it is to Christianity that Western civilization, quote, owed its entire democratic inheritance. So how do you put this kind of knowledge into practice? I want to give you 5 very simple, straightforward strategies, 5 questions. So let's say you are in class and your professor says something crazy, which happens every 30 seconds, right? Consider this as a strategy. If you don't know exactly what the facts are in the situation, you could just raise your hand and say, I'm a little puzzled, and then ask a question that defines the terms. What do you mean by that? One time a guy told me, there is no God. And instead of disputing him, I just asked him, what do you mean by God? He said, you know, the big grandfather figure in the sky who throws lightning bolts down on people he doesn't like? I said, Zeus? No, I don't believe in Zeus either. We have some common ground here. The second thing is to dispute, and you don't even have to make a claim, you can ask a question. A question like, do you think that's the whole story? One of my professors in class one day said, students, I'm going to describe to you in one sentence the whole of Judeo-Christian history. God is a mean bully. I just raised my hand and asked, do you think that's the whole story? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, you summarized 4,000 years of history in one sentence. Do you think that's the whole story? And he said, well, of course, I'm exaggerating for effect. Well, I looked around at my classmates and realized in one instant, they began to see him as the closed-minded bully and me, the Christian, as the open-minded person. It was a complete turnabout. Here's a third question to decipher what is going on. How did you arrive at that conclusion? It's fascinating to me that people will take on a worldview and even march in the streets without having the slightest clue about why they believe what they believe. You can simply ask them about it. Fourth is to plant some doubt. How do you know that what you believe is true? It's always been a little baffling to me, but even people who say there is no such thing as truth believe that to be a true statement. Are you following what I'm saying? So if they say that, you don't have to dispute it, you can just ask, how do you know that what you believe is true? I promise you, even with prominent professors, when I have asked this question, I get fumbling and sometimes 20 or 30 seconds of silence because they have never actually considered that as a possibility. And then the final thing is to give people something to dwell on. What happens if you're wrong? What happens if you're wrong? Let me give you a quick illustration of this. When I was at the University of Denver getting my doctorate in philosophy, I loved when people would set up booths on campus and want to talk to you, right? Because that's really cool. They're inviting a conversation. So one day we had Animal Rights Day. I walked up to one of the tables. What are you doing? We're saving the harp seal pups. So I asked, why? The guy looked at me and in a very snotty way said, who are we to say that we are any better than any other creature? Well, that is an opening big enough to drive a truck through. And I like to drive. I said, well, I have a problem with your worldview. He said, why? What's that? I said, do you bathe? You know, it's an honest question, right, for some of these people. Yes, I bathe. Do you use shampoo? Yes. Do you have any idea what shampoo does to the little dust mites that live on your body and depend on you for their survival? He shuddered and said, no. I said, well, I will tell you. The shampoo goes inside the mouths of those little dust mites, and they swell up and explode and die and wash down the drain dead. He asked me, why are you telling me this? I said, because you just said, who are we to say that we are any better than any other creature? I'm just wondering how you justify being a mass murderer of dust mites. This led to a 15-minute conversation about really important things. I want to give you a little more training. If you are coming to breakout sessions this afternoon, I invite you to two. Number one, I invite you to a workshop that's going to be held at 1 o'clock called Marxism, Socialism, and Social Justice and 5 Simple Ways to Respond. We'll talk about the Marxist worldview. Then at 2 o'clock, a workshop called Jesus and Conservatism about how Christianity is responsible for liberty and justice in this country. I'm Jeff Myers from Summit Ministries and Summit.org. Thank you so much for your time.
America is under attack by evil forces from within. The media, big tech, and powerful forces in government have declared total war on our most basic freedoms. As we begin a new year, much remains uncertain about the future of our country. But we have a choice. We have a choice between docile acceptance of the left's new order or a chance to resist their totalitarian lies, America's founding principles. That's why TPUSA is gearing up for an aggressive assault to reach more young people than ever before with an affirmative, unapologetic case for America's core identity, free markets, limited government, and individual freedom. Nearly 20,000 Americans have already joined us in supporting us in the battle of ideas, but we need you to be a part of this movement. We need you to stand with Turning Point USA as we fight the American culture war and stay on offense, reaching more young people than ever before with the case for American greatness. At Turning Point USA, our firm conviction is that our country can only survive if our young people, the future of this nation, come to love America as much as you do and I do. We cannot stop until young people love America again. We cannot stop until the Turning Point generation counts into the tens of millions. We are up to the challenge, and we are leading the nation in defending and advancing America's founding principles. So please, right now, give a year-end tax-deductible gift at tpusa.com/donate. $50, $100, $500, maybe even $1,000. It is all matched dollar for dollar right now as we gear up to win America's culture war. We are the fighters. We need your help. Please go to tpusa.com/donate to make a year-end gift to give us the ammunition so we can win the culture war.
Be reverent. Take your hat off. Put your hand over your heart. Say the words of our national anthem with pride, because you are an American. You live in the greatest country in the world, and you have opportunities unlike anyone else on the planet, because you live in the greatest country in the world.
Ladies. And dudes. Because you matter too. Where are my ladies at? If that's in fact what you identify as. I have to fact check that. Where are my dudes at? I got it. Where are the Americans at? Oh man, it's been a weird year, guys. If only I had, something to talk about at all. I was trying to think about what I could come out here and tell you guys. And so I always like to start off with real breaking news. Any Fauci fans in the room at all? You mean the Sith Lord in real life? You guys don't like Fauci? Well, I went on the internet today, and so I thought I'd read you a Christmas tale really quick, if I may. Is that okay if I read you a little Christmas story? All right. How Fauci is this? This is headline CNN News right now. You ready? Fauci to small children. I vaccinated Santa myself. Now wait just a moment, it gets better. Children asked Dr. Fauci, will Santa be able to visit me in coronavirus season? Will he be able to come into my home? What about the reindeer? Fauci responds, I took care of that for you because I was worried. So what did I do? A little while ago, I went all the way up and gave Santa the vaccine myself. I measured his level of immunity. What a nerd. What a nerd. You're talking to kids. And he's good to go. He can come down the chimney and give you presents. Thank God for President Trump and a vaccine, right? Somehow the media seems to forget about that in the first place. I seem to remember Fauci, the media. I got fact-checked for simply quoting the president saying, in the presidential debate, a vaccine is coming probably this year. A miracle, they said we would need. No, they just needed to shut up and let the president do his job. And so I started reading this article, and I always try really hard to see like the other sides of the article, not the fact that Fauci is like the Grinch who stole Christmas but never figured it out. And so I started reading this and I thought, what kind of kid asked that question in the first place? And I started thinking about the fact of, well, the only reason a kid would ask that question is because parents, oh, by the way, breaking news, if you still believe in Santa, you might want to cover your ears for this next part.
These parents have had to have conversations with their kids that maybe Santa might not be able to make it this year. Why? Why is that? You guys, every single one of you are smarter than 80% of the people in the government right now. How sad is it that these parents are having to have conversations with their small children to prepare them for the fact that there might not be any presents under the tree this year? Santa's got COVID? I like that. No, nay, sir. Santa does not get COVID. And may I say, Santa would not allow Dr. Fauci to come give him a shot because Santa is a conservative. That's all I'm saying. So I've been thinking about all this stuff, and I was having a conversation. You know, there was a lot of people that were outside last night, and I went out there and I talked to a lot of them. And a friend of mine was actually out there, and they wrote us this morning, me and my wife, and they said to us, you know, they could have complained. They could have been like, this is bull crap, this is blah, 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 we deserve this, this, and that. But instead, they simply said something that I thought was really shocking, and they said, you know, sometimes we have to be a little uncomfortable to remember what freedom actually means. So my question to every single one of you is simply this. Why are we closed? I'm serious. Why are we closed? Why? Why? Why are restaurants going out of business? Why have thousands of small businesses closed? Why are millions of Americans out of work? Why are parents having to talk to their children about Santa? It's not going to be able to come visit this year because what really is happening is because mommy and daddy do not have any work. Why in the crap are we not going to church? And so I start thinking about this, right? I start thinking about, why is this happening? How did this happen? Everybody ever seen that movie V for Vendetta? You ever seen that show? You ever seen that show? Man, how creepy it is what's going on right now, right? And I start thinking to myself, you know, who's to blame for what's really going on? Cuomo? Cuomo's to blame for a lot of things. Those nipple rings are one of them, but we'll get to that in a minute. Oh, don't act like you didn't see it. Every single one of you. Scarred for life? Yeah. Imagine his kids. Anyway, but the point, this is a Christian speech, just chill. The point is, I started thinking, who's to blame? How did we get here? What's going on? And the truth of the matter is, the only people that we have to look to is ourselves. We're to blame. We're the ones. Why are we closed? I had COVID-19. Made it. Alive and kicking, baby. I lost about 20 pounds. I was looking like I was in my 20s again. Things were great. No, on a serious note, COVID-19 sucked for me. I got it really bad. It was not fun. But why are we closed? Why are we shutting down? Why are we living in our homes? Just now on CNN Today, an article was published about how loneliness is actually a good thing. Because it is real stuff right here. I'm not making this up. Fact check true. CNN, loneliness can help grow parts of the brain tied to imagination, study finds. Yeah. Like people who talk to themselves on a random basis. They're never lonely, ever. Do you see what's happening? Do you feel what's going on? Do you see what they want to happen? They are training us, or trying to train us, to believe that it's okay to become dependent, that it's okay to not be exceptional in who you are. Exceptionalism, individualism, these are all parts of democracy. The Founding Fathers, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I've studied this the past several months, the pursuit of happiness. Why would we put that in there? Why? Why would we put those words, the pursuit of happiness? It's not the guarantee of happiness. It's not the government is going to take care of you happiness. It's the pursuit of happiness. Because the founding fathers imagined that we would not be lazy pieces of garbage that would want the government to take care of us for the rest of our lives. No, they wanted us to be actual Americans that would stand up, want to go to work, want to pay our bills, want to have something that we could be proud of other than the fact that AOC is running her mouth again. That woman. The Lord told me not to hate anybody, but she pushes it. Every day. Every day. Who else is anybody on her hit list? I signed up. The Trump supporter hit list AOC put out. Yeah? I even tried to start one of those online petitions, and it got shut down because apparently it's like against the law to start a hit list petition. I don't know. It's weird. AOC can say it, but I can't. They're attacking us in every way, shape, form, or fashion that they know how. Big tech plays a major part in this. We believe that we can be whatever we want to be, but being whatever we want to be is not in realms of accomplishment anymore. It's in realms of we don't have to accept actual laws of what is. Ellen Page made tabloids not too long ago because now she just decided one day that she was Elliot Page, a white heterosexual dude married to a lesbian, I guess. It's like a riddle. And I simply pointed out, if Ellen Page can claim that she is now a white man in love with a gay woman and not get a fact check, then I should be able to say, Biden cheated. But God forbid we point out the fact that, hold on, I have numbers. God forbid the fact that Obama won 873 counties with 69 million votes. Trump, no, we'll go Biden really quick. Biden won 477 counties. Half. Trump won 2,497 counties. There are no blue states. There are only blue cities. So do not tell me that America is a blue country because it is not true. Oh, no, no, no. I got fact-checked for a meme the other day. A meme! It's the one of Biden where he was, waving to someone in the clouds. You guys seen that meme? You know what I'm talking about? Apparently he was waving at the firefighters that were turned the opposite direction, that didn't know he was there. And I love how the media is so protective of Biden. Biden, original things come out, he wins the election. You can boo for that because we all know that's not true. Yeah. There we go. And then a story comes out that the future leader of the free world has broken his ankle while playing fetch with his dog. The dog does all the work, Joe. What were you doing? And then the media covers for him, and then Biden, I love it, man. I love it. Biden comes out and he goes, no, man, that's not what happened. Maybe. No, Joe Biden comes out and says, I was naked getting out of the shower trying to grab the dog's tail. What? What kind of relationship do we have with this dog? This is some scary stuff, man, I'm telling you. I am telling you, this guy. Hey, man, I had the privilege and the honor of being able to go to many Trump rallies. Anybody ever been to a Trump rally? Good Christian people in the audience today, I see. There is no freaking way that guy won. None. This dude didn't leave his basement for months. And when he did get out, 12 people showed up. 6 of them worked for him. And this dude won? Absolutely not. I'll never forget it. I will never forget it as long as I live. Watching the election, we're set up at the Dear America studios. We're watching the elections, and I'll never forget, go home, go to bed. No more counting's going to happen tonight. And then miraculously, they kept counting. It's the craziest crap ever. Hundreds of thousands of votes come in just for Joe Biden. This never happened in the history of ever. When hundreds of thousands of votes go 100% one way for a person. We have video evidence in Georgia of the tables showing up. Everybody seen this? The tables and the things? But the mainstream media and the news say, oh, that's just simple procedure. You simple Americans. There is nothing to see here. Dance puppet is how I like to compute that. They do. Here's the truth. I've got 10 minutes now to talk to you. It's all been fun and funny and stuff like this, but I've got 10 minutes to tell you something. What can I say to you that other people have not said? So I just figured I'd start with the exact opposite of most politicians, and I'd tell you the truth. Is that okay? All right. These people over here don't like the truth, apparently. It's like it's the side of church that's asleep. The truth is that the media, the big government, they think you're stupid. They think I'm stupid. They think that we are stupid. And worst of all, and I do mean worst of all, they think that we will not do anything about it. Restaurants are closed down. Thousands of businesses are out of business. Millions of people are out of work. And who is dictating this? The Cuomo. Are you from New York, good sir? It's been a long road, hasn't it? I'm telling you. Anybody from California? Oh my gosh. Hey, real quick, and I gotta hurry, but real quick. I did a little poll on my Twitter page, and I said, who do Californians hate worse? Gavin Newsom or the devil? And it wasn't even close, man. Californians will take the devil all day long over Gavin Newsom. This man is the most hated man in the country. I don't care what anybody says. But what do? We're closed. We're closed. Where are our, I know we have some amazing pastors here, Rob McCoy, etc., but where are our real pastors that say, you don't have the authority, only God has the authority to tell us when we can worship, where we can worship, and how we're going to do it? Where are they? Where are you? We're waiting. It seems to me that the pastors with the biggest influence seem to be the ones that are more concerned about their donations and their likes on Instagram than they are for actually standing up for the Word of God and the actual rights and freedoms of the people of America. Democratic socialism may be trying to destroy this country, but I guarantee you that woke Christianity will kill it first. Why are we closed? Why? Does anybody here, your family, own any businesses that are suffering right now? Anybody at all? How many people know somebody whose family is suffering from this? We're all suffering. Exactly right. But don't worry. You got another $1,200 coming 8 months later. My bills are paid. I don't know about yours. $1,200. These idiots. But that's the point, right? You have these people that were elected by us to represent us. Well, yeah, except for Joe Biden. Anyway, metaphorically speaking, for the people, or of the people, by the people, for the people, right? That means that we elect people to represent us, to do the will of us, the people. And somewhere along the way, these tyrannical dictatorship, ooh, Lord help me, I can't do it on stage, jerks. Unlike the politicians that bend the knee in Washington, I do not cave to peer pressure. We have these tyrannical leaders that forgot that we are their boss, not the other way around. We are in charge. I did a little calculation the other day because, some people on the internet call me crazy and racist and all this other stuff. But I did just like a little rough estimate in my head. I'm like, I wonder how many people are actually in the government, right? Like how many people are actually employed by the government? You got the military, you got DHS, you got FBI, CIA, all this other kind of stuff. I said, maybe 2, 3, 4 million people tops that are actually employed by the U.S. government. And I got to thinking, holy crap, there's 360 million people that we know about in this country. Why are we letting these people who have never missed a paycheck, who have more money than you will ever have, who have never had to figure out how to send little Timmy off to baseball camp, tell you that you can't open your business, you can't go to the gym, you can't see your family on the holidays, you can't see your family that's dying, you can't go to church, all the while when tax season comes around, they're like, where is our money at? Why do we let these people tell us how to live our lives when we are the American people, we are the boss, we the people means us, so I say it's time that we say, make us. That's what I say. What are you going to do? What are they going to do? Make us. Make me close my business down. I'm not shutting my doors for nothing. Period. Nothing. And I love our police. I was just privileged enough to be able to join the Reserve Sheriff's Office where I live to be able to help in our communities. I love our police, but I'm telling you right now, you're not closing down my door because I'm not going to let you. Because that's not your right, that's not your authority. You do not have the power to tell the American people what they can do to survive. But it's going to take more than talking heads on a big screen like this. This is great. This looks really good. This is amazing. But what happens when you go home? What happens when you go home to your Californias and your New Yorks? No offense, California, I'm sorry, but you know your state sucks. Anyway. What happens when you go home and you're back in the real world and people say, well, they said we got to do this and we can only have 3 family households and, I've got 4 brothers and sisters, so mom and dad have to pick somebody that they don't like the best not to show up. Now, John or whatever her name is, no, they're not the favorite. What are you going to do? It's going to take more than people talking. Talking doesn't do anything. All talking does is start the wheel to change. And the wheel to change is action. And it is about time that we all stand up tall, we all stand up straight, and we say, no, big government, because big government sucks, by the way. We are Americans. We tell you what to do. You don't tell us what to do. If you guys didn't know that, they work for us. So if I can leave you with one thing, I've got 1 minute and 53 seconds to work this in. It's not over. It's not over. And I'm not talking about the election when I say that. The truth is, I don't know what's going to happen next. I know that it's going to be some crazy times ahead. But what I can tell you is that the American dream, the idea of America, the power of Americans is not over, because people like you are starting to stand up, and you're starting to wake up, and you're starting to realize that we have the power to make change, but only if we stand together, get off your freaking phones, stop recording bad things that are going on, and actually do something about it. Last point, and it is the de facto biggest point that I want to drive home. I got 47 seconds. I had someone write me. I like to read my fan mail about my show, Dear America. Anybody listen to it at all, Dear America? Yeah? Thank you. The rest of you should. You're not doing a good job. No, anyway. I love you, random citizen. All right. Person wrote me and they said, real quick, I got to do it fast. He said, love the show, bro. Love everything you stand for. But can you chill it on the God a little bit? Because I'm not religious. And I normally don't write back, but this time I said, oh, yes, I will. So I wrote back and we exchanged a couple things. And I said, so do you believe in America? Do you believe in the Constitution? Do you believe that this is the greatest country in the world? Oh, nothing for greatest country in the world? There we go. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, well, good sir, I hate to break this to you, but you also believe in God, because this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. The founding fathers knew that the only way we were going to make it is if we believed in Him and we followed Him and we did exactly what God ordained America to be, a shining light in this world as I kill myself. And it's time that we go back to being Americans. I'm Graham Allen. Thank you guys very much.
What got to me the most is how mean and vicious they were.
While the mob was chanting no violence, they were pushing and assaulting those who wanted access to the event.
College campuses are not free speech areas. Do you understand? Obviously you don't understand.
It was shocking to have a university professor tell us that we weren't allowed to have those free speech rights.
I had never imagined that, me just expressing my Catholic faith would cause such a backlash and an outroar.
Jack, I hope you're listening and you understand why your beliefs are so vile and wrong.
Jack Denton should have never been able to hold this position in the first place with his known beliefs.
The most shocking thing to me was the amount of unlawful and violent behavior that the university allowed the protesters to engage in.
We're not exerting any control over the crowd.
You can't allow a mob to shut down speech just because the mob disagrees with it.
What's up, TPUSA? Man, it's awesome seeing this many freedom-loving college students come together to show their support and support one another for freedom. My name is Tyson Langhofer. I'm the director of Alliance Defending Freedom's Center for. Our mission is to protect the First Amendment rights of students and faculty at public universities so that everyone can freely participate in the marketplace of ideas. We have successfully represented hundreds of students just like you in standing up for their First Amendment rights after their school tried to silence them because they didn't like their views. Now, after years of representing college students fight for their First Amendment rights, I've learned that there are three must-haves in order to be an effective advocate for conservative ideas on college campuses. The first must-have is that you must value truth more than you value popularity. Let me repeat. You must value truth more than you value popularity. Now, why do I say that you must value truth more than popularity? 2 reasons. First, as conservatives, we place a high value on justice. We believe that all laws must be just, and we recognize that justice cannot be achieved apart from the truth. Rabbi Zacharias said justice is the handmaiden of truth, and when truth dies, justice is buried with it. So as conservatives, when we're evaluating whether to support or oppose a certain ideology or a policy, the cornerstone of our analysis must be whether the policy or ideology is based upon truth. We must never evaluate whether to support a policy or ideology based simply upon whether it is popular. A policy that's based upon inaccurate or false information will result in unjust outcomes, even if it's supported by a majority of the people. As conservatives, we must not support laws that result in injustice. America was formed because the founding fathers believed that England was enforcing unjust laws. The Declaration of Independence begins by declaring certain truths. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, we must value truth because laws will only be just when they are based upon truth. Now, the second reason that you must value truth more than popularity is truth. It's not very popular on college campuses today, right? Now, I'm sure every one of you experienced this one in one way or another. Speaking certain objective truths will not make you popular on today's campus. For example, abortion is the intentional killing of a human being. There are only 2 genders. Abolishing the police is a bad idea that will only result in more harm to the very communities that they're supposed to protect. Socialism has failed in every country in which it's been implemented. And Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich is better than Popeye's. Yeah. So, now these are just a few examples of objective truths that, if spoken, will cause you to be unpopular on campus. But if you want to be an effective advocate for conservative ideas, you must be willing to speak truth, even if it's unpopular. Now, the second must-have to be an effective advocate for conservative ideas is courage. Why do you need courage? Because expressing conservative ideas on campus will trigger immediate and significant backlash. Why is that? George Orwell said it best: the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. He also said, in a time of deceit, telling the truth, it's a revolutionary act. In my work, I'm inspired every day by the courage displayed by my clients. It takes courage to stand up to your university administration. It takes courage to stand up to the mob. But I see every day that their courage is rewarded. As Teddy Roosevelt said, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Now, the final must-have to be an effective advocate for conservative ideas, you need a good First Amendment lawyer. Chances are, if you're actively promoting conservative ideas on college campus, you're likely to be confronted with a situation where a college official attempts to enforce a policy that violates your rights. Now, that's where we come in. At ADF, we love partnering with TPUSA groups because you guys are out there bringing the truth every day to campus, to a dark place on campus, and they need the truth. And so we love representing you guys. At ADF, we've achieved more litigation victories for college students than any other organization in the country. We would love to help you if you ever encounter any problems. And if you want to learn more about your First Amendment rights, I'm doing a breakout session at 1 o'clock in room 2DEF. Would love to see you there. Keep up the good work. Keep fighting for freedom. Keep bringing truth to your campuses.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Texas State Senator Don Huffines.
Some fun out here today of Turning Point. Well, I am. You didn't come all the way to Florida to get a sunburn, did you? You came here to change the world, right? I hope so. Well, let me tell you something, guys. When I was your age, I didn't have Turning Point USA to help me. But when I was 17 years old, I knew there was something about the political space, the political world that I didn't really understand. And so I had to do it the old-fashioned way. I had to, walk blocks and study and make the phone calls and help candidates over the years and hosted fundraisers. And I finally realized there's something in me that I think it's in all of y'all. It's a flame of liberty that burns in you. And you can't extinguish it. It'll be with you on your deathbed. Well, so I decided I needed to run for office. But guess what the Republican Party, as you probably know, is infested with? Rhinos. Rhinos. Y'all know what rhinos are, of course? Republicans in name only. We've got lots of them in Washington and all the state governments. I mean, look at Lindsey Graham. I mean, what a rhino. He's been charged with Judiciary Committee forever. He's been sitting on Hillary Clinton's emails forever. He's a creature of the swamp. Why isn't Clinton in jail? Lock her up. Let's hear it. Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up! Lock her up! Lock her up! Well, I decided to run for office because there was a trophy rhino sitting in the seat I wanted. And I took him out. 25-year incumbent. It was great. But let me tell you a quick story of my experience in the swamp in Austin, Texas, with the rhinos. Okay, let me set the table for you. There's 31 state senators in Austin. When I was there from 14 to 18, there was 20 Republicans and 11 Democrats. All right, so we're going to my first Republican Senate caucus meeting. We would meet every Monday night. There's not many of us. We represent more people than a congressman. And then we meet at a restaurant. And so I take in that restaurant, this first meeting, little old me. I'm very nervous and anxious, and I've never been in office before. And so it came my time to go around the table there, and I stood up and I said, well, senators, there's one thing I think we should work on this session in Texas. I said, we should expand the Second Amendment, and it's a priority of our party, and we need to get constitutional carry. Constitutional carry. Permitless carry. And I've got the old pistole in my pocket, and I've got my favorite document in the other pocket, the U.S. Constitution. And I said, guys, senators, I get it. I really get it. Hey, if you don't want to vote for the bill, I hope to persuade you otherwise. But that's okay. Because the most important thing that we're going to do is get this thing to the floor so we can see where you stand on this issue. So we can, be accountable to the voters that sent us here. And you know what I heard? Nothing. Silence. Crickets. And then I heard a fork hit a plate. It sounded like a church bell going off. It was so loud. Then gradually, 1, 2, 3, 4 more senators got up from the table in the middle of the meal and left. Needless to say, the rest of the night was very awkward. Well, the next morning, I get a message. Senator Huffines, you need to apologize for what you said last night to the Republican Senate caucus. I said, what did I say? He said, you specifically said that you're going to hold fellow Republican senators accountable to the voters. I said, I damn sure did say that, and I damn sure not apologizing. And I didn't. I committed right then to work on constitutional carry as hard as I could as long as I was state senator in Austin. Well, Patriots, if you didn't know something, you need to know it. Most of your Republican leaders, they don't want to be accountable. That's why they might not like you. Because you might hold them accountable to their campaign promises. You might hold them accountable to our party platform, for our principles, for what we stand for. They work hard every day not to take a vote that might jeopardize their reelection, that might get them primaried in the next election. They do not want to be accountable. Oh, well, maybe I'm being a little tough on them. All right, maybe a little bit. Because sometimes they do want to be accountable. They love to be accountable to the money, to the lobbyist. Worst of all, what they would talk about in Austin, they would love to talk about what do the Democrats think. They cared more about what the Democrats think than what the grassroots think, that the activists think. Guys, what do you think is the most important trait you can have to be an elected office holder? Is it to be a good debater? Yes. This is what it was good. Courage. It's more important than being good looking. It's more important than raising money. It's more important than being articulate. It's like the other guys have said when they've been up here before me. Courage. It's the tip of the spear of all virtues. Do you know how hard it is to stand up when everyone in the room's telling you to sit down? You've got to really think that through. How hard it is to not be wanted, to not be spoken to, when your own staff, your own team members are telling you, no, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't get out there and just sit down, forget about it. You're never going to move up. You're never going to get a bill passed. Do you know how strong and how much courage you have to do that? And what a foundation and liberty you have to have? You've got it. You can do it. I mean, just look right now in our country, what a mess it is. Let's take voter fraud, for instance. Oh, people that deny voter fraud, I mean, seriously, really? Ever since the human race has had an election,